Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, fellow Ambazonians. I am glad to be with you here today. And wherever you are, please share as much as possible. Today is the beginning of a very vital program over ABS. I want to use this singular opportunity to thank the former anchorman who has become the leader of the interim government, Mr. Chris Anu, for giving me such an opportunity to anchor on this program. My people, the stakes are high. The revolution is at a very crucial stage. And we all need to come to table. We need to come together as Ambazonians, people from one father, from one family, and build synergy and discuss, have a friendly conversation and push this thing forward. We need to finish the job we had started. Please, as you join me navigate into these various topics tonight, I want you to share. I want you to share as much as possible. Let us build the audience. We are receiving Comrade Chris on this program, and he's a man that comes with substance. He's a man that comes with a lot of information for all of you. And many other people do not yet understand his vision. It is at this moment wherein we will seek to know, particularly from him, what he plans to do in this revolution. I think I am right to say that he is the newest leader. Others have been there, and we know the state of the revolution. He has joined the other leaders in order to push this thing forward. And so what difference is he bringing? What special effects will he bring? That is what I seek to know today. So fellow viewers, join and share as much as possible. God bless you. This is Tewa Free here, and we have Amber Freedom Man. Please share as much as possible. Bobga Esther, thank you, sir. Please, I thank you for joining. Mary B, thank you for joining. Betchem Daryl, thank you for joining. Amber Warriors, thank you for joining. Atianjo Fidelis, my regards, sir. Senior Comrade, I greet you. Amber Truth, God's child, you are God's child indeed. Please, I hope to see you showing that you are the God's child. Emiliama Sanu, please share as much as possible. Call your friends, tell them something different. Something different is about to happen here today. Please share. And while we are sharing and building the audience, let us have some other discussions. We also the issue of what happened in Batibo, or particularly in Guzang, 2 days ago, where a mother went to take a shower, returned to her room, and was applying oil on her body. She was a woman of over 65 years old. She did nothing to La Republique du Cameroon. She could not be anyone who takes a gun to fight against La Republique du Cameroon. Her only crime is that she was an Ambazonian, and she is dying an Ambazonian. Madame Munji Cecilia died out of gunshots in her own room. She didn't go out of her house. She wasn't in the market. She was in her own house, and that is where death met her. This is to show you that there is nobody that is free. Never you dare say that this you are thing, that one amber thing, because it affects us all. You heard it when he said they have tried to assimilate us. They didn't try to assimilate just one person. They tried to assimilate all of us, even those who walk amongst them as slaves. Tonight, as our comrade comes, we are going to give a minute of silence to every fallen hero. So please share as much as possible. We have resisted for all this period. A time comes when we do not need to talk about resistance anymore. We need to change it from what we call resistance. In the 2016s, 2017s, when Honorable Weber said, when injustice become law, then resistance become a duty. We resisted. We said, no, you can't do this to us. The lawyer said, you are bringing injustice against the people. The teacher said, you are bringing French teachers to teach in their classrooms. What did they do? He declared war against us. And so only war should we take, and nothing less. Nothing less. A tooth for a tooth, and that is the only way. That is the only language they hear. We are just talking, but please share so that we get to the real matter of tonight. Share as much as possible. Let us get to 500, please. Let us get to 500. We will be discussing a number of issues tonight, like the issues that are happening in Canada. We will be discussing about the Swiss talk that ended. We'll be talking about ground zero leadership. We will be talking about the issues in the interim government. We will seek to have clarifications for a number of issues that Ambazonians are thinking or asking questions out there. If we do not talk, our people will not understand us. They may not even understand the direction. The stakes truly are very high. So you have to join me navigate through these issues. I am still very discouraged with the turnout here. Please share as much as possible. Let me greet some of you here. Martha and Joe, Arms Zonia, James Mulu Bole Toleti. I greet all of you. Midiki Dennis, thank you very much. Join and share as much as possible. Now, we are in a crucial stage in this revolution. We have discovered that a lot of people have discovered the people that had caused problems in this revolution. People had been exposed. We know the thieves. We know those who bring conspiracies. We know those that have been implanted amongst us. We know those that are genuine as of this moment. That is why you are seeing that surrogacy is dying down. That is why you are seeing that those people who used to bring conspiracies are dying out. They are going down. But this is giving birth to a new level in this revolution. People that should be more focused. People that should seek for ways to make this thing work as much as possible. We shouldn't fight this war for 10 years. 5 years is already very long. We should finish this thing within 6 years. And we get to Amazonia. Without getting this thing, I don't know what will become of us. Home is home. And if you think you have to go home with me, then we have to join hands tonight and not quarrel, but listen keenly, get solutions, get a roadmap, and then we begin to work. Fellow Ambazonians, share. This live show is coming at a very crucial moment. Crucial in the sense that the enemy that declared in Paris that they try to assimilate us are confused themselves. God had given a chance to La République du Cameroon to make a change. He has given the chance to the citizens of La République du Cameroon to arise and make a change. La République du Cameroon is the only country that have people that are ancestors leading the country, from the parliament to the Senate and to the State House. People that are fit just for the old people's homes. People that should have been taken care of by their grandchildren or by care homes. are they leading the country? And yet they are satisfied because they are unable to bring a solution to the problem that they have, and they begin to enjoy in poverty. A time is coming, and the time is now. I'm not a prophet of doom, but it is imminent. You have seen them struggling to put the son as the president. They have put, for the first time, you could see flyers, posters with the pictures of Frank Biya on the streets of Yaoundé. You could see Paul Biya introducing the son for the first time in the open. And yet, these people are unable to rise and say enough is enough. Rather, they choose to stay quiet and wait for the Messiah of La Republic to go. So what is left is the hammer of God on them. The plagues are coming. The signs are there, but they are taking note. They are not taking note. Fellow Ambazonians, if we are not getting ready in order to take advantage of the moment, then it would have been better we didn't start in the first place. But I think it was a good thing we started. So we must come back and re-examine where we are and ask ourselves, if it happens, if they have to reduce forces in order to stabilize their side, what do we do? Every Ambazonian that was tired and had gone behind the scenes need to come to deck now. That is why I'm here. I am here because I am thinking that we should have gone further in this revolution than where we are now. I am here because I think that there should be a time when we should fight, and there should be a time when we need to talk like people of one father or one family. We have differed a lot. Comrade Chris and myself have differed. The IG and myself and other stakeholders have differed in ideas and ideologies. Our strategies have differed. We have fought ourselves. But there comes a time when we need to say, no, these things have to end. That is why my comrade, Senior Comrade Chris Anu, accepted to give me a platform. That for the next 2 months, every Friday, I can come here for us to have a discourse. I can bring in some guests for us to have a discourse. Not necessarily people from the interim government or the faction that he leads, but people, Ambazonians at large. People who have something to offer. People who think that Ambazonians need to hear from them because they have something to offer. So that together we seek for the best for Ambazonia. So in the next 2 minutes, we should be going into the real issues of tonight. So press your share button as we go into this. Let me give a regard to some few persons. Amber Freedoman, greetings. Mafo, oh my God. I greet you, madam. My condolences for the passing away or the brutal murder of Mama Munji Cecilia, a woman in the same quarter with you. Ambassador the Divine, greetings. Silicon, greetings. Please, I want us to go into this monologue and then we can receive our senior comrade here. We can't continue to wait and wait indefinitely. People had been waiting and Ground Zero should be waiting. So, fellow Ambazonians, on the 30th of November 2017, Mr. Paul Biya officially declared war against the people of Southern Cameroon, now called Ambazonia. He did this as he addressed journalists at the Simalen International Airport when he landed. If he was a president for the people of Southern Cameroons as well as those of La République du Cameroun, he would have listened to the cry of his people, the people who said they are treated unjustly. They are sent teachers that are only French speaking or lawyers that do not understand common law. Unfortunately, he declared war against us. Well, we only have one thing. We had one option. Take the challenge. 5 years down the lane, the restoration of our statehood is more sure than ever. We had changed and metamorphosed from the use of cutlasses, then guns, locally made explosives, to the use of more modern equipment or materials for warfare. We have changed the narrative and made this war an internationally recognized war. And that can only be settled between La République and Southern Cameroons in the presence of a mediator and the United Nations. It is no longer an internal affair. We had refused to dissolve, and we have shown that small, in quotes, no be sick. Yes, no one will ever undermine any country or any group of persons that are determined for a cause. Yes, we, the people of Southern Cameroons, are determined. We will fight till the end. And today, we are privileged to have a man that was there in the beginning. Before the revolution started, actually in 2016, dear Ambazonians, Mr. Chris Anu was already a believer of the freedom of Southern Cameroon. We are here today with him for a cordial and friendly conversation with this great statesman, a fighter and a revolutionary. We are here with a man whose presence needs no introduction. We all know him and we know what he has done. Yes, he has served the revolution from the beginning when he had this program called Ambazonia Calling, if I am right. Yes, and the Ambazonia Journal. We know what he did. We know how frank he used to be. We know how dedicated he was. We know the sacrifices he made. He paid his flight severally to Nigeria, to all of the conclaves. He was there in the building stage of this interim government. He has stood firmly against the regime of La République du Cameroun. And finally, because of that, he earned the confidence of Mr. Ayok Tabe, the president or the leader of the interim government. And he was appointed into the cabinet as a secretary of communication. He was in this position, and until the people or the Naira 10 were abducted on the 5th of January, 2018. Thereafter, Mr. Sikod Judson became the chairman or the president of the interim government. He again appointed Mr. Chris Anu as the Secretary of Communication. No one will deny that Mr. Chris and the microphone are just like a phone and a SIM card. He is good in what he does. He is a man of strong conviction and fights for what he believes. And he does so with no remorse. The entire Ground Zero soon developed personal likeness and love for him. In the advent of any ghost town, they would always listen. They would wait to hear from Mr. Chris Anu. And when they hear that there is a ghost town, then everybody knows that this is official. However, during the same period, when he served under Mr. Sako Ekume, surrogacy became a normal, and we believe he was champion of what was called the Blue and White Army. I said, I allege. I didn't say it's a confirmation. But I know within that period, when he was Secretary of Communication, there was the Blue and White Army. And this is a group that caused a lot of division, surrogacy, and brought up a lot of conspiracies against other factions. The man who began as a champion against La République du Cameroun soon became a man who served more for his faction than fighting for the revolution in general. We know how much his voice meant. We know how the enemy shakes when they hear his voice. Yes, he does that all the time. But many are of the opinion that he pays more attention in putting that interim government and stabilizing that interim government and pushing it more than he was pushing for the revolution at large. And that is why people till date still accuse him for some of the things that happened in the past that were not good. They think that he was part of those who supported the killing of 37 in Bui. They thought that he is part of those who accused or even went to the level of banning the ADF and other groups in the revolution. He supported other ventures like the Swiss talk that have now failed, and with a proof that La République du Cameroun never engaged. Some of these things, in addition to the fact that under him, the interim government that used to be one had now divided into four. The same orange that was given as a whole had now been cut into four. He was there at the impeachment of Siseko Ayoktabe. He was there to take off Ekume Sako. He was there as Marietta became the leader and saw her again form another movement. Today, he is the president of the interim government. Now, we think that, or many people think that the kingmaker, the power that had been behind the leaders, had suddenly left them and all of them went down. To prove that he was the man of strength, he was a man with a lot of ability, and because he shifted his loyalty, Mr. Ekume Sako is just a shadow of himself. But now that he is the leader of the interim government, he says he campaigned with one slogan: unity and collaboration. He sang unity and collaboration. Secondly, he campaigned on the stance that the revolution is weakened and that the revolution must be saved. And so if the revolution must be saved, we are here today to hear from him how we are or how he can change the situation, how he can change the narrative, and how he can make ground zero vibrant again. Many of the structures that were there at the beginning are beginning to be weakened. County by county, that was one of the best strategies to pursue this war, is a shadow of itself. Many counties are not financed anymore. Many of the fighters in Ground Zero are now quitting to other movements, and many of them had not been financed for a very long time. He is here today, and we believe that there is hope. Many may think that he has been a bad man. Many may think that he has been a problem in the past. But there are many too who think that even Moses had been a killer in the past, and God used him to liberate his people. Is this the Savior we had been waiting for? Is this the Joshua that was to lead us into Amazonia? We were asked to donate money for my trip to Boya. We did, and we never got to Boya. Is this the person that is to help us get through that ship into Boya? Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we welcome Senior Comrade Chris Anu.
Thank you, Comrade Sikod. It's a pleasure to be your first guest premiering on your show. Thank you, sir. I look forward to having a very fruitful discussion with you today.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. It's a privilege for me, myself, receiving you as one of the newest leaders that have just joined the fold of leaders in the revolution. You had been instrumental in the past and always very instrumental. Now you have the final decision in anything that happens in the interim government. And that is why it gives me that singular pleasure to talk with you here today. But first, let me wish you my sincere condolences for the loss of your wife. And I think it must be very heavy having lost two close people within a very short time.
Yeah, it's not been easy. We've had a very, very difficult moment for the past 2 months, as you know. First was the killing of Field Marshal, my own immediate brother. And Field Marshal was actually killed while my wife was hospitalized, lying in there at the intensive care unit at the hospital, and she learned of it on a sick bed, a bed from which she did not eventually get out of. So after the killing of Field Marshal, then a month after or so, my wife followed. So you can imagine it's been a very tough moment, a very difficult moment, and it's going to take time to recover. I can assure you, I can come here and smile and talk and look okay, but it's not been easy.
Yeah, I know it is a very difficult moment. And sometimes some people show a lot of courage out here, but when you are on your bed alone, that thought comes in mind all the time. I only can wish you courage. It is a loss that we all really feel for.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me use this opportunity to give a minute of silence to them, because your wife was a believer in our restoration quest. She believed that we will obviously have this liberation, that Amazonia will be free. And Field Marshal left his job and joined us to fight when he should have been enjoying in the other side. And then many other Amazonians that had fallen within this period, including Mama that was Cecilia Munji, that was killed in Kuzang yesterday. Let's all have a minute of silence. May the souls of the faithful departed rest in perfect peace. Before I go into the discussions for today, Mr. President, I want to know, what name should I call you? Should I call you Your Excellency? Should I call you Mr. President? Should I call you Comrade? Should I call you Mr. Chris Anu or Pastor?
You can call any of those, but I prefer that I be called Comrade Chris. If you call Mr. President, that is fine. But Your Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief, let's put those ones aside for now, until when it is appropriate time.
Yes. Now you are more responsible, and you say, "Let us leave president," because these issues of titles cause a lot of problems. But I still see many of your counties, when they have meetings, they are addressed like honorables, honorable this, honorable that. Are we not already practicing politics before it is time? Can they not copy an example from you and call themselves comrades?
No, I don't see any problem with those titles. That's exactly who they are. We recognize them as our parliament. We recognize them as our legislature. And so if legislators anywhere around the world go with the title of honorable, I don't see why they should relinquish it. We are trying to practice a government here before we get to ground zero, and the fact that I choose to go by comrade should not relinquish them or strip them of those titles. I just like to keep things simple, so that everybody sees me at their own level. When you begin to attribute those big titles, President, Your Excellency, or blah blah, Commander-in-Chief, it really takes away the kind of mix that you expect the leader to have with the people. And that is why I choose to go with Comrade Chris. It makes it really easy. And besides that, Comrade, we are still fighting to get the country. When we get the country and we are in charge, yes, our leader is the president, is His Excellency. But I promise you, even if I were to be president in Boya, nobody should call me His Excellency. This is something that only obtains in Africa, and there is no excellency in Africa. They are all dictators.
Yes, because I think that we should have been having revolutionary structures at this moment. And based on the fact that we do not yet have universal suffrage, that these people were conducted, including those on ground zero. They were not elected by those in ground zero, except of the diaspora. We should have been building more of structures that are more revolutionary than structures where we think we can begin to practice things when it is not time.
I don't know what you mean by structures that are more revolutionary. I think that is what this interim government has done for the past few years that it has been in existence. You will recall that from the onset, there was nothing like counties. From the onset, there was nothing like LGAs. We only had, even from the onset, there was nothing like regions and countries. So we have evolved from nothing, from zero to something. You've seen the drafts that were conducted for the past 2 years with the counties and the LGAs. I mean, these structures were not there again from the onset. These are revolutionary structures, and they were set up so that we are able to effectively raise finances. Unfortunately, the leaders, especially the recent past two leaders we brought into place, we don't know how they used the money. They squandered the money, and we just did not get enough out of what Ambazonians contributed through county by county, LGA by LGA.
Sir, I want to think that you have that very good intention, and those who brought this initiative, like county by county, brought a very good initiative that would have been very good in galvanizing resources, in controlling the voice, of coordinating them, and knowing who is who, especially when it comes to kidnapping or leadership on ground zero. But unlike what you are talking, I want to give you an example of what is happening with me in an LGE, just one. We find a situation where people that were village presidents say that you were Guzan, you were Basi, you were this, you were president in the United States, now decide to come together. They that were the elites have now seen a position where they could come together like the real elites and be the only people to talk. And you know, in those days, Njangi groups, or in these days, Njangi groups are always one of the best or most humble or most careful people in a community. Now, how do you think they will behave towards a revolution like this? They run it as if it's Njangi. They can't really do what young men could do. These are things that revolutions are a hard knot. You need people that are not so conventional in the way they behave. But what happens when you bring old people, presidents of village groups, and they become the chairman, become the defense chair, and so on? What happens? That's why politics is killing it. It's not only the issue of money. Do you have a contrary view from this?
I don't think I understood your premise there, but if you are trying to say that the idea of security chiefs, country chairs, and LGA chairs, and so on and so forth was a wrong idea, an idea that then elevated men above the regular Amazonian, I think you are very much wrong there. You
didn't understand me. You didn't understand me.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that there are people that are elites, that are the elderly statesmen, that are people we had respected. But these people think they should be the only voice that should speak. And the young people like myself, that is not known. That should have been the one running up there and doing the dirty jobs for this revolution. The old people think that, no, you should see who is this young man that is talking. And so the counties become a place for politicking, a place where people fight more. So you see that at the IG level, there is that politics at the level, there is at the county, there is at the LGA. At the end, it affects the boys more. Have you taken time to examine that?
I don't think that is a correct assumption. I do not see a situation where the elderly are fighting the young ones. I think you will agree with me. You have been in this for as long as this struggle started in 2016. You have not been anywhere, and if you are classifying yourself among the youth, then you would not say they all have been fighting. You have known you for quite a long time, and you have been there, and you are actually one of those managing some fighters out there in Momo, if I am not wrong, but at least I know that you were involved in Mogamo managing
and my people think that I shouldn't be there. It should be them. You know?
Well, of course, if that is true, it is wrong.
And that's why you see the conspiracy so much.
If that is true, it is wrong. We need everybody, young or small, in the struggle, because everybody brings something to the table. But I will add this. I think that every Amazonian, young or small, should identify themselves with their counties and their LGAs, their countries and their regions, because I like Amazonians to understand this. You mentioned the idea of the interim government. It was a great idea. It remains a great idea, but for greed, selfishness, and that has led to the divisions that we see today. But it was a great idea. The idea was, we have one big tent. We have one big tent under which everybody belongs. We reason together. We fight for funds together. We support Ground Zero together. We put money into their hands together. We pursue diplomacy together. That was what the interim government was created to be. And of course, we then brought in the Restoration Council to act as a check and a balance in between the two. Those two institutions are still there. Divisions have come today because people grow selfish. I don't know what they benefit from hanging on. I have been in this from day number one in 2016. I have never been paid a dime, but I have put in my time and everything that I can. If I had my way, but for the passion that I have for this struggle, if I had my way, I would have just walked away, especially with all the attacks and surrogacy out there, killing of my brother. You know, some people said to me, Chris, why not just give up and forget about this thing? See, they kill your brother. I would have walked away. But for the passion that I have to see Amazonia free, I'm not going anywhere.
Yes.
In spite of the
Comrade,
divisions, we would, let me just finish this, we will do everything to seal those divisions that we can. But those that we cannot see, I can tell you, they will be inconsequential.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is the, I was bringing up this point because some of the people even in under Marietta, when they came in for recalibration, I opened up to them and said, okay, these are the boys. There are 4 groups. I didn't want to own fighters. I shouldn't. I only go to lobby funds from others to sponsor them. So come, let's recalibrate. And they said, yes, let's work. And before it was 2 weeks, they said, Sikod, you should leave. You are not IG. We should be the only people talking here. And I stepped backward. And today, do you know what happened? If you have carried out your research well, you will discover that many fighters on ground zero are even living. For example, 3 groups in Mugamo alone have joined the ADF. Many of the other groups in other counties have joined the unity movements. Many of the other groups that were in the IG are now joining this Ground Zero Liberation Council. And now I have that, I don't know what you have researched and found out. I am of the opinion, and many Amazonians too, that the interim government you have succeeded now has only Libialem as the stronghold.
No, I think you get it completely wrong. I don't know where you're getting your facts and your statistics. Yes, there is a unity movement that we see on the ground. We appreciate that. We actually endorse that. However, we fail to endorse what they call Ground Zero Command. We will not endorse it.
Yeah,
the time is not right
for
it. And when you mentioned 2 groups in the Batibo or Mogamo that had joined the ADF, I don't know where they were before, because we've not seen them fighting anywhere. In Momo, we've always known the ADF is there in Batibo, but we don't know whether there are other forces there because we've never seen them fighting anywhere. Of course, we knew of Commando. Commando was long gone, and since then, nothing has happened there. So I don't know where you get your stats there. But let me add something to the movement on Ground Zero that you described. We here at this interim government, we are totally, completely for unity of fighters on Ground Zero. But we must be careful to specify what kind of unity we are talking about here. I have said here before that we are about the kind of unity that unite the fighting forces inter-counties to the extent that fighters in Batibo or Momo can cross over to Manu and fight alongside the fighters in Manu, vice versa. To the same degree, fighters in Meme can cross over to Fako and fight with the fighters in Fako, vice versa. The same thing maybe with Mezam and then Goke Tunjia and Momo. That is the kind of unity we are talking about. Now, this is distinguished from what they call Ground Zero Command. Our view of Ground Zero Command is county by county because we hold no territories at the moment. Saying that let's get one Ground Zero commander, that is what it implies. One Ground Zero commander without having a territory that we control, ladies and gentlemen, is preparing them in a bundle to hand them over to La République du Cameroon. That is the risk involved. That is the risk involved, and we will not like to see that happen.
Comrade, I want to ask you that, don't you think that the long period of the fights that had existed in the interim government had caused these fighters to be frustrated? As much as I know, many of these forces have not received money from the interim government for close to 2 years that this fight.
No, I think that is not, again, you are not correct there. You are not correct there.
Let me
take care of that. Let me take care of that. You are wrong there. I would say to you that Ollie, I would say about a month. I mean, I've only been here for close to a month, and before I came here, Marianta was here. Let me make the point. Before I came here, Marianta was here. Marianta sent money to the ground, to the fighters. And so you cannot, come on, how can you even think that for 2 years, nothing has been sent to the boys? You might say not enough has been sent, but to say that nothing has been sent is an overstatement.
Yes, but maybe she had sent to some wherever she was able. But what the complaints we received more was that she paid more attention to buy equipment. For example, she bought a launcher for Bali. She bought for some other movements. But many of the counties have not received money for feeding and keeping the boys off of groundnut. I don't want to go to levels that can expose certain weaknesses on the ground.
You are correct, but you do not.
Maybe her time was short.
You are correct.
I'm not saying this because of to challenge. I'm not saying so to challenge, but to say a little bit of problem that is happening, so that you know that you have a lot of challenge to rise up to this challenge.
I acknowledge the challenge. However, again, you are wrong to suggest that for 2 years nothing was sent to the ground by either Sikod or Marianta. You are absolutely wrong. I think you will agree with me that it is within the last 2 years that Ground Zero in terms of quality equipment has changed, because funds were sent to them. Were they enough? I believe not, but at least they have received something, and their gear has been upgraded from what we used to know. You will rarely find Dane guns anywhere on Ground Zero today because of the upgrade. But again, let me say this. You are right. There is a great challenge on Ground Zero. But my approach to this war and the fighters on Ground Zero is going to be very, very strategic, very, very surgical. The time has passed that we took money and gave to people, go and buy bullets, go and buy guns. We want to see we have enough guns on the ground today and bullets for action to take place. What we have to do now is maintain what we have while equipping them with the bullets that they need. And action should be seen in every county of Ambazonia. Those are the things that we want to fund. We are no more just funding equipment. We want to fund action. They have the right equipment. Hold on there, I'm coming. You will agree with me that there are fighters on the ground with RPGs. They never use them anywhere. They never use them anywhere.
If they lack, they
go on.
That is the same thing. I want to point out something to you. We have a lot of RPGs on the ground. But when you put a strategy, you must be able to identify the strength of those fighters. You don't give an RPG because you needed to give them to show that you've given. Most of the boys that have RPGs cannot use it. If you do not put training alongside the equipment, it doesn't go. Number two, you agree with me, or you can also tell me what you think. That's why it's an interview. That we are outgunned, we are overpowered, and you saying that we have upgraded. I think that we have not done enough. I have carried out a study, which I cannot say it out here, but there are counties. I am not talking of LGE. There are counties that have maximum of 15 acres in the whole county, which means some of the LGAs have just 2. And unfortunately, we have too many fighters that do not have guns. What would you do in order to put more guns into the hands of fighters who are willing but do not have?
That's a good question. And what we are going to do, comrade, is this. As I have said, we are going to, it was a mistake to even think that everybody, every fighter and every county on the ground should be carrying an RPG, especially at this early moment. You have, let's say, 10 RPGs on the ground and you have 14 counties. You will imagine that FACO alone will need at least 3 RPGs. Bamenda alone will need at least 3 RPGs. Maybe Kumba will need another 3 RPGs. So the idea of taking maybe 5 or 10 RPGs and trying to spread them to every country. For example, one was sent to Nkambe. I don't know for what reason. It has never been used. Whereas FACO has only one. Unfortunately, to the guys who have them, they've never used them. In Bamenda, I think Bamenda has one, or in Bali, they've never used them. So they're supposed to be strategically deployed to strategic locations, which is what we also plan to do in the way we supply equipment, not just RPGs, but equipment in general, because in this war, there are strategic towns and counties that we need to a lot of focus on. And that is what we will do. That will be our approach on how we make provisions to the fighters on the ground. But let me also add this, that the fighters on the ground would have to be loyal to their LGAs and counties' constituted authority, because we do not want irresponsible action on the ground and the people on the ground have nobody to report to or to look up to. We want responsible warfare and responsible boys and girls carrying guns and fighting on the ground, recognizing the chain of command in their counties and their LGAs, so that when things happen on the ground, we know who to go to. We know the people on the ground also know who to call. That is the wisdom in county by county commands.
Okay. Yes, one of advisors are telling me so much security talk, and so we would be leaving it there. But it would be good for me to you talk for about 3 minutes, spelling out your vision and your strategy for Amazonia, only that which is necessary to be known before we go into the questioning. And while you will be doing that, let me also read a question that is someone is writing, that which force is the IG sponsoring in Mezam? For as long as I know, there is none. Are you going to leave Mezam without sponsorship or funding because none belong to the IG at the moment?
Again, comrade, I don't know where you are getting your information.
It is one of the defense coordinator writing now here. I'm reading
the defense coordinator belonging to which to this interim government.
If it was the interim government, then
if that defense coordinator does not belong to this interim government,
it's one of the groups that are taking care of Mezam, that are having fighters in Mezam.
Well, one of the groups, and again, you will recall this interim government takes care of the groups that identify with the interim government. So somebody from outside cannot be vouching on information that they know nothing about.
And the question is asking is that due to the vital location of Mezam, are you not going to work in collaboration with them that handle Mezam, or you would only sponsor your own? And now that the IG does not have forces in Mezam, how would this
No, again, please, please, please. You get your facts right. We have commanders in Mezam who control forces. Call Comrade Sama Thomas and he will tell you about Mezam. Now, to whether we will support this other commander you are talking about, if he identifies himself, if he doesn't, but if he identifies himself with the interim government, the interim government will be much more than ready to work with him, because correct. We are not going to again to give money to people who are not accountable, who cannot come out and give account to the government or to the LGAs and the counties.
You spoke of Thomas, and I believe that he is a spokesman of Butabu Kwifo. Butabu Kwifo is not directly an IG group, but if he is there and you say you will work with a group that associates with the government, then,
hold on there. If he is a coordinator and he is a member of the interim government and honorable with the Restoration Council in that matter, how does it make sense to say they don't belong to the interim government?
Butabu Kwifo is a private group, but he is the spokesman there. But he has a right to belong to the interim government.
It's a private group. Who owns it?
Well, I have
no, I
to
think
know
you're not getting your facts straight. Comrade, listen. Every fighting force on the ground is sponsored from the diaspora, and you agree with me that the overwhelming majority of the forces have, for the past years up to date, been sponsored, supported by this interim government. We want to continue to do that. But again, we will not do it. Take my word for it. We will not do it unless they are reporting to their LGAs, to their counties, and then to the Department of Defense here. That is the chain of command. When we make rules, we have to follow them.
Okay.
This is, let me add that, again, this is very critical and important because our people have suffered on the ground a lot. We don't want to have a warlord system where individuals are building up an army and then they go out and attack people on the ground, kidnap people, take money, and they are answerable to nobody. No, they should be answerable to their LGA and county commands and then up to the Department of Defense and the interim government. That is responsibility and accountability. The idea that somebody will sit in Europe or in America and is running a force, let's say he is from Manu and is controlling a force in Bali. When things happen in Bali, who knows him in Bali? But the people in Bali knows the local leaders and in their LGA and in their Mezam County that they can reach out to. This is the kind of orderliness that we want to see with the fighting force.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to go to the next question. And at this point, you usually had promised La République du Cameroun tsunamis. You had promised them hurricanes. And you were the communication secretary. You were not the head of defense, or you were not the commander-in-chief, as you put it before. And so what plan do you have now? Should we jubilate that things are going to be hotter now? And how are you going to use the available resources to make this thing happen, bearing in mind that the IG is in 4 groups and therefore the funding is reduced than it was at the time of Dr. Samuel Ekome?
Yeah, the funding is reduced, but I can assure you the funding has been reduced because people who have sat on this same seat where I am sitting did not do the right thing. One thing I have believed in the course of this struggle for the past 6 years is that when Ambazonians see their leaders doing the right thing, taking the war to La République du Cameroun, seeing action on the ground, they will never grow tired of supporting the struggle and the fighters on the ground. That is exactly what I intend to do. And one aspect that I have added to this is crossing the border and taking the fighting into La République du Cameroon. And yes, I promised a hurricane. I promised all those things. They did not come from me. I was speaking the language of a communicator who was representing a government that had planned. When you come out and tell Amazonians, if you give me 2 million, I will take you to Boya. What does that mean? It means you are preparing for a hurricane. You are preparing to fight to take them to Boya. That was the premise upon which I said a hurricane is coming, because I saw Amazonian putting in money, donating money. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, the money was not properly accounted for. And so my words went in vain. But the good thing is that right now I sit on that seat, and I won't talk more about, I don't like a lot of talking at this moment. I just want people to see what we are going to do. We started with a deer. We shut down their one of their grids, electric grids in a deer. The impact wasn't as much as we expected, but I'm sure you all saw it on their television. In the days ahead, they will see us, they will not hear us.
Okay, and that sounds like your own strategy, because there is no leader without a strategy. And if you don't have a strategy, you are bound to fail. So your strategy is make them feel the pain we feel by taking it to across the Mongo.
Yes, comrade, let me just interrupt you there. And let me tell you, when I went to ground one and I saw the pain that our refugees, they go through on ground one. When you are with them and they tell you their stories, you will weep, you will cry. And if I took anything out of ground one, it was the determination that La République du Cameroon, we must make them to begin to feel the pain that our people have felt for the last 6 years. Some people think that La République du Cameroon is about to sit down and negotiate with them now. They are mistaken. As of the moment, nothing will push La République to negotiate with them. Let me just round this up. Nothing is going to push La République du Cameroon to sit on the table to negotiate with us unless they begin to feel the pain that our people feel, unless they begin to produce refugees into Gabon, into Equatorial Guinea, into Togo, into Central African Republic. Until they begin to do this, nothing will move them to come and sit on the table. That is why I am totally against what is happening in Canada. We must hit them and hit them really hard.
Okay. And I thought you were one of the advocates for the Swiss talk. And how does it become very different that you are saying we are not ripe now, we need to hit them before going for that?
Well, absolutely, I was an advocate of the Swiss talks. But what happened with the Swiss talks? La République du Cameroon walked away from the Swiss talks, isn't it? We thought we could bring them to the table and sit down and talk to end the war. But they thought that military force was going to military force was going to dissolve the 2 cubes of sugar. Apparently, the 2 cubes of sugar refused to dissolve. Now, they're now saying they don't have confidence in the Swiss, and they've gone the Canadian way. But the Canadian way happens not to be the same thing that the Swiss was supposed to be.
Yes, we will come to a separate discussion about the Canada. And now I wanted to ask you that when you talk globally, what you are going to do, are you having some things that, for example, a leader, it doesn't matter how long a leader stay in a place. It matters only what he's able to produce. If you cannot have actions, if you cannot have strategies, if you cannot have results that come out because of your own influence, then you are not leader. It doesn't matter if you say you have been there for 20 years. So is there something you are able to do and tell Ambazonians within the next 100 days into your office as the president of the IG?
100 days are too much, sir. Within the first week, we visited them in a year already, isn't it? I give you in another 2 weeks, just watch and see again. Television is not where you come and tell people what you want to do. I can always say Ambazonians should sit and watch. It will never be the same again, especially with La République du Cameroon. 100 days are just too much. I am giving you within the weeks to 1 month, just watch and see what's going to happen.
We take you for your word, but we will go back to visit that topic where you were the spokesman of the interim government, and you said you spoke what the government wanted you to say as you promised hurricanes. But don't you see that some of those statements, things of defense, are not supposed to be spoken by a government spokesman? Defense spokesman is different, and their language is different, and the way of communication is different. Were you not going too much? A military man speaks in a language that military people will understand.
I don't know what you mean by that. If you can zero down to maybe some examples.
You were a government spokesman. You were a government spokesman, like the communication secretary, and things of self-defense, you used to come and you speak about them, you promise hurricanes and so on. Are you going to do it this time differently? Because self-defense or defense spokesperson is different from a spokesman of the government. Because it is totally different.
I think you are making a mistake there. You are right. Granted, you are right, but one thing you have to know in communication is that if you have a message, and you pass that message and the message doesn't go across, what is the need? You have to look for the most effective means to communicate and to get the message across. If Sikod Judson is the person who through his platform can effectively get the message across, let Sikod Judson do it. That was the wisdom in some of the things. You mentioned lockdown on ground zero, right? People were calling you and saying, until Secretary Chris announces it, they will not believe it. It wasn't my domain, isn't it? Normally, the military is supposed to be the ones out there enforcing it. But my voice was the most prominent, remained the most prominent. And so I couldn't sit and say, let defense what spokesperson go and do it. Of course they did it. My voice was only there to drive the message and make it effective, and if we need it today, it will still be done the same way. It only complements whatever message has been sent out.
Okay. The Amazonian People's Liberation Council had said it and corrected some things that had been said by other people, that they are just a council. You had refused to, or your institution had refused to endorse them, that it is not right. And yet, some other people think that it is a way to force diaspora to come to collaboration. And I have this particular statement from one of the great statesmen, and that is a military man. He spoke to me today, and he's called Colonel Braddock. He writes, a military are trained to protect the flag and the people, not to protect the leader. The military protect the state from kidnappers. When the leader becomes the kidnapper, the military comes in to set order, and that is why we saw Burkina Faso, as he mentioned, Mali, Congo, and most recently he said what is happening in Amazonia is because leaders in the diaspora were almost kidnapping the struggle. And when some are voted out, they would not want to leave and they want to influence Ground Zero in the wrong way. Don't you see that it is a challenge to us to come back together, reorganize ourselves, and get a council so as to work with the council on Ground Zero?
I don't understand what you mean by a council. I have heard this idea of a council again and again and again and again. The difference is just in the name. In the name. When you talk about a council, what are the structures of a council different from those of a government? But listen, Colonel Braddock is correct. They have, and which is why we are saying this idea of Ground Zero command, where one person is in charge and still controlled by the same confused Ground Zero warlords. No, we will not support that. We will support county by county commands. If Field Marshal Nobiti is commanding the Unity Warriors, we respect that. We support that. If Grandpa is in Bali commanding the Buffaloes, we stand with him, we support him. If 10 Kobo is an Indian, we support him. They lead these chains of command. And again, we want them to be reporting to their LGAs and their counties, so that when kidnapping takes place, we know who to call. And they can also report to us. Hold on a second. We know who to call, and they know who to, and the people on the ground also know who to call. We do not want somebody sitting in Belgium and having a force totally out of his own county, and all that they do, as Braddock says, is kidnap, take ransom, and torture people. No, we want all that responsibility on the ground. We stand with unity and ground and county by county chain of command.
Now, let me ask something. If you are talking about county by county chain of command, do you recognize that Marietta continues with the same concept of county by county? Do you recognize that Sako remains with the concept of county by county? Meaning that there are, in every county, there are 3 county chairs. So where would these boys align? Where would they pay allegiance? Is this not confusion?
Comrade, again, you speak with like somebody who is ignorant, but you know you are not ignorant. You know that the interim government, this interim government has legitimacy based on its foundation that is founded upon the Restoration Council. Anybody can go out there, form anything and call it interim government. Where is their base? Where is their foundation? We believe there is one legitimate interim government which is backed by the Restoration Council of Ambazonia, formed by the people of Ambazonia from the onset of this struggle. Any other thing is a pseudo. And so that is why the fighters on Ground Zero recognize the legitimate interim government that is led backed by the Restoration Council. Any other group doing any other thing on the ground.
Do you think that the international organizations recognize your own criteria of which one is legitimate?
They have no choice.
Do you think Mr. Siseko would one day think that, no, it is because you have a Restoration Council that you are legitimate?
Okay, hold on there. Let me tell you why the international community and anybody else has no choice. If you say the international community doesn't recognize this legitimate interim government backed by the Restoration Council, you are essentially saying that tomorrow I leave this place, I refuse to stand election, or I complain of election system, I just shift aside and form my own thing and call it interim government or give it any name, and the same international community will just embrace me, isn't it? No. What we are saying makes a lot of sense, and it helps the international community because they know exactly where the overwhelming majority of Ambazonian people stand, and it stops the division, the disunity that they are
Mr.
talking
Chris,
about.
Mr. Chris, I think the original place is to have avoided the proliferation of groups. I heard you in your presentation last week before the burial of your wife, or before the Canadian talks or initiative or whatever. You said you gave a condition to the Canadians that you will not sit on the same table with any group that calls itself IG. And so they should go and change the invitations because you are the only interim government. Do you think you can be the one to dictate who should be a stakeholder in this struggle or not?
That is not what, I think you misunderstand it. That is not what we are saying. Again, I have stated in the last 1 minute.
This is put in another way, but that is what you said.
Let me explain to you. Does it make sense that you have 4 IGs, so-called, sitting on the same table and they do not agree? Does it make sense? It is for your interest and my interest that if we are seated on that table, we should uniquely identify who we are and what we stand for, than to go there, 4 of you, calling yourself IG, and you do not see eye to eye, you do not agree, and then you leave the same international community leaving you saying the IG. They will not say IGs. They will say the IG. They are so divided that even when they came together, they did not agree. So this is the point. This is the point, and we are not saying any group should dissolve. If they don't want to dissolve, at least give yourself a legitimate appellation. You are not the IG. You are a group, a legitimate group, but you are not the IG. That's the point.
But what about the fact that some people think that the legitimate IG is that of Siseko because he was the person that came out of the product of SCACU, that was a joint platform from other frontline movements?
Well, you make that point, but those people are wrong, and which is the reason why we have structures in this government, and which is why the interim government is so unique. You have, again, the Judicial Council. You have the Restoration Council. You have the Ethics Committee. The structures of the interim government impeach and remove Siseko. Anybody has a right to believe what they believe. If he is their leader, that is fine. But listen, you cannot cancel the idea or the fact that he was removed and he is no longer the leader of the interim government, unless you mean he was meant to be president forever.
If I understand very well, most of the groups that were invited to Canada were those that have forces on the ground. And from my findings, they didn't know who has which forces. And if they go by it, they think that Mr. Sako still has a Sagon. He still has a pocket of some forces. And so they think he's still a stakeholder. And now you campaign on that aspect of unity. Would it not have been good for you not to talk about who should be invited or not, and pay attention for what you campaign for and rather seek for it?
What I campaign for doesn't mean that you pander to illegitimacy, to criminalities. That's not what I meant. I am out there talking to quite a handful of leaders. Almost everybody in the Siseko camp that you're talking about, I've spoken with them from the top to the bottom, and we are still talking, and something is, I guess, is in the making. But listen, trying to get people to unite doesn't necessarily mean that you endorse, again, illegalities. Because that will mean that I can go, I live here tomorrow and go out and do exactly the same what they did. We must come to the point where we stop those things. We live in the diaspora. We live in civilized countries. We know how to criticize our leadership back at home in Africa. But we live in these same countries and we are just copying the same dirty things that we see in governments on ground zero. They need to come to a point where we stop it. And I want to stop it. Number one, by making sure I don't stay here one more day when my day comes off to leave. And number two, to make sure that people are no longer living and forming factions that further divide us. So if you consider it from this perspective, we are saying to those factions out there, you want to exist and be recognized, give yourself a different name. We will embrace you. We will welcome you. Okay. We will work with you. But if you think you are the interim government, no. Show us your Judiciary Council. Show us your Restoration Council. Show us your Ethics Committee. Show us your cabinet. Does that not make sense?
Yes, and you said you were ready to sit with groups that, like the AGOPC, SOCADEF, other groups in when it comes to any negotiation, and not any group that calls itself IG. But I understand that you also some of them were banned. Are you considering taking off the ban, or you just work with them without lifting up the ban?
The ban on what?
There was an announcement you made some time ago as the communication secretary under Dr. Sako, that the ADF and SOCADEF and other groups were banned.
We have never banned we have never banned SOCADEF. I remember the ban on the ADF.
Okay, and so my question is that during your presentation, you said you were you could work with them, you could be with them on the table for negotiations and not with any group of the IG. I'm asking you now that, are you going to sit on any negotiation table with AGOPC without uplifting the ban against them?
Well, again, I was speaking the position of the government. I was communication secretary. Now I have the powers to change certain things, and that is why I am starting with an olive branch to everybody. But you have heard me say it again and again and again. We will sit down with people, and we will sit down and talk with people who can demonstrate that they are fighting the same war that we are fighting. If you cannot prove that you are fighting la Republic, I bet you we will not waste our time, because how does it benefit us talking to people just for talking's sake? We want people who are fighting, whom Ambazonians can attest they are fighting. In the moment we recognize that, we will sit down with them, even if we disagreed with them in the past.
Yes, and let us talk a bit about the Swiss or the talk in Canada. Are there some particular reasons you thought that these Canada talks were not ripe at the moment? I heard you say you try to differentiate the Swiss and the Canadian initiative. And what was the reason you refused to be there?
Yeah, there's a big difference between what was going to happen, or what was happening in Switzerland, to what they started in Canada last week. You will recall that for the years that mediation, negotiations, dialogue have been talked about by the international community, this prescription has always been an all-inclusive dialogue or negotiations that zeroes into the root causes of this conflict. The United States, the United Nations, even the Canadians and the British, they all supported it. They stood by it. They said they want an inclusive dialogue that zeroes or discusses the root causes of the conflict. The Swiss were very conversant of this and they were walking the line. But this is not what we have. In Canada, I receive phone calls from the Canadian authorities inviting us to the Canadian meeting. And I had opportunity to ask them questions as per what is going to be on the table, what is going to be discussed. Will independence be on the table? What is going to be there essentially? And the answer I received was, under no circumstances will independence or secession be on the table. I was told that the only thing that is going to be on the table is the idea that La République du Cameroon is now ready to talk about the form of state. Now, the form of state, not the Ambazonian state, but the La République du Cameroon state. So when I asked, what do you mean by form of state? The idea was the form of state in a form of state in which more powers are divulged to the regions. More powers are divulged to the regions. Essentially, to cut it short, the answer was they are looking at the Canadian example for Cameroon. Now, Cameroon now, including Anglophones, as they call it. So, you look at this. Cameroon drew the agenda. We were never consulted. Cameroon planned everything with the Canadians. Call us 2 weeks to the meeting. In fact, they planned it, scheduled it, call us 2 weeks to the meeting to tell us a meeting has been scheduled for Canada on October 10 through the 14th. We want you to be at that meeting. Now, if you look at the Swiss initiative, there was a lot of background, teamwork, building the team, informational, that went on between La République du Cameroon side until they walked away and the Ambazonian side, preparing both sides towards a negotiation that looks into the root causes of the conflict. In the case of the Canadians, it is not the same. It is not the same. Now, how do we, knowing that the aspirations of Ambazonians are not going to be on the table, and we say we should go and sit down and listen when we already know what the agenda is going to be? In fact, some of those who went there listening to me when they came back talking to me, when they heard me say this, they were shocked. I guess they were not privy to the information that I received. And some of them said, if they knew this, they wouldn't have gone there in the first place. So, Ambazonia was off the table. What was on the table was La République du Cameroon's agenda. But let me also add this. Canada is an extension of the Grand National Dialogue. For the past 2 weeks, Cameroon has been celebrating the achievements of the Grand National Dialogue and the special status to Anglophones. Now, the movie to Canada, just so that Ambazonians are cajoled with Canadian security to say, okay, now we can go sit down with them. But what is on the table? Is it the aspirations of Ambazonians? Comrade, let me round this up. Dialogue or mediation without preconditions means that La République du Cameroon should be able to say, okay, let's sit down and talk. Whatever that you want to put on the table, let's discuss it. Of course, they are not forced to accept what we say. We are not forced to accept what they say. But everything should be on the table. No precondition as to what should be discussed. That is why we stayed out, and we are going to stay out until La République du Cameroon really means business.
Yes, you are right to stay out if at all you discover that they were to talk only about living together, or the form of state like sharing a state like federation and so on. It's very okay, but I want to ask you that: do you really think that La Republique or Ambazonia can ever go on the table with a notion that they are going to accept anything less than independence? And so La République du Cameroon may also think that we cannot come to the table to come and give you federation or independence. They will want to stay. So everything is determined on the table. Don't you think that is the way it is done? And secondly, don't you also discover that there are some procedures before negotiations actually happen, and that these Canadian talks were not negotiations, they were not mediations, they had not gone to that point. I believe that what was happening in Canada were exploratory talks to see how much you people understand that negotiations should start, and that confidence must start by talking. Don't you see it had to start at that point?
You see, the error you are making there is when you say or use the word exploratory talks, it means, or it should mean, everything. Everything is on the table. They are just exploratory, isn't it? So if you are doing exploratory talks, open the table, put everything on the table, and that is where you now begin to pick and choose what can stay on the table. But in the case of Canada, what they want is already on the table. Again, unfortunately for some who went there, they were not privy to the information that I had. If they knew, as they have confessed, they probably wouldn't have gone there. So exploratory talks should be talks that, should have everything on the table, and then you begin to pick and choose what stays on the table.
Sir, the information I'm gathering from Canada really differ from what you are saying. And so some of the persons who went there also differed, that everything was on the table, but that they agreed that they should talk again and see that a higher level of a representation of La Republique should now be engaged.
I just told you everything was not on the table, and some of the participants in Canada have said to me, if they knew what I knew before that meeting, they wouldn't have gone there. They wouldn't have gone there. Now, if you also remember, I don't know who you have spoken to, they discussed nothing, zero in Canada. Our people could not even talk to La République du Cameroon people. And who were La République du Cameroon people? Low-level people from ministerial offices, not even minister-level personnel. And again, they were not allowed to even know their names. They were not allowed to know their names. Listen to me, one of our comrades attending the meetings approached one of the coordinators and said, what is that other guy's name? Was asking the name of one of the Republic official. And the coordinator, the Canadian, said, well, I am not really allowed to tell you. I cannot really give you the names of those of that La Republic official. And also look at this, comrade. If you also look at this, if that thing is really serious, that is a serious meeting, a really serious meeting. The first one in which at least La République du Cameroon is sending some low-level officials to sit on the table. What happens in such meetings is that you come out, even if you don't want to do a press conference, you put out a press statement explaining, at least summarizing at least what you talked about. You don't just leave people wondering, and you even want people not to say anything. What kind of a meeting is that?
Sir, I am thinking that you are getting this thing more serious than it should even be. In every revolution, in every negotiation, there are always backdoor talks. there are many backdoor talks that fail. And until the one that will suit the two sides, and they now agree that Canada is now, if the two parties, La Republique and Ambazonia, now see that it is now pertinent, some level of trust, some level of commitment is now being put into the discussions.
You are making a mistake there. You are making a mistake there.
To give mandates.
Listen,
me, sir.
You are making.
Excuse me. I want to give a little bit of procedure.
Let me just say this. You are making a mistake because you don't call leaders of movements from all over the place, call it a conference, and you call it a backdoor talk. It is no longer a backdoor talk when you convene everybody in a conference.
So at what point would you think that the two teams would ever have confidence before it gets to the level of real mediation where they commit, and now the mediator announces that it is now the official mediator? At
the moment, La Republique says we are ready to talk about anything. That is a moment. That's the moment. The moment when they don't draw the agenda, we all contribute to the agenda. That is the moment. Those are open talks. Those are frank talks.
I believe that don't you think that to have refused discussions, you would have had an opportunity to discuss with some diplomats and know some procedures of how things work in diplomacy, or before negotiations, before taking the conclusions you are making. Because I believe that you think everything should be discussed on the media.
Comrade, I don't think you expect me to come and sit here and tell you whom I discussed with, or we discussed or consulted out of this interim government before arriving at that position. We did due consultations with diplomats, with intelligent, smart Ambazonians out there who are not even members of the interim government. We all arrive at that position that when La Republique is open up enough to say, let's put everything on the table, start from there, and then begin to separate what goes out and what stays, that is when you call frank and inclusive dialogue.
Yes, I understand, and I also believe when you say it is you are cautioned and you shouldn't sit down. We should be more cautioned so that we are not misled.
But let me also add you, comrade, why we are a little bit. Let me also tell you why we are a little bit very cautious, and we have to be. Everybody should be. I don't have issues with those who went there. At least we realize we got a real colors of what came out from there. Now, let me tell you why we are very cautious. Ambazonians, listen to me. There is nothing, zero, that is getting La Republique to go talking about mediation or peace. The theme in Canada was peace to return to Cameroon. But Cameroon is only talking about peace because they are about to have a transition in their country, and they do not want their new leader to inherit war. That is one thing Ambazonians should take note. Number two, without this situation, there is nothing to force La Republique du Cameroon to get to the negotiation table because we have not hit them enough. I keep on talking about devastation. When you look at Ukraine, you look at Syria, you look at the Palestinian Authority and all these war zones, what do you see? You see devastation. Yaoundé hasn't seen any of it to walk to the negotiation table to say, you know what, it is time to negotiate. But lastly, comrade, listen to me. I really think if Cameroon is serious, because I am told that in Canada, they said they are tired of war. They are tired of that is lip service. If they were tired of war, they will start by releasing our prisoners. Release Sisiko. Release every prisoner as a gesture of goodwill. And then we know that you are tired of war. And in fact, let me add this. Before we sit down with La République du Cameroon, those prisoners, Sisiko and the rest, they should be released. If Cameroon truly wants to negotiate peace, Sisiko and the rest, they should be released. They must be released, else we are not sitting on the table with them, because these are some of the people that should sit on that table too. Don't you think that?
Yes. I am happy with your explanations, and we should be rounding up because we have taken a lot of time on this program. We cannot exploit everything tonight, but I really need to still say something about collaboration, then we go for tonight. But before I go there, don't you see that I watched a woman in Kumba last year went to listen to Paul Atanganji. And when he was lying as always, that lady stood up there and said, objection, objection. She knew that Atanganji would always lie, but he pointed out direct to him that he lied. And then you are very courageous to have gone to Nigeria when everybody could not believe. And then you had also received Mr. Frundi. You have received other CPDM people who think that we should remain as one. Don't you think that if you had sent a low-level representation in Canada, it would have been a better place to come out and tell the people of Ambazonia and expose them more, because you had handy information, than saying that you only heard from people whom you didn't send?
Yeah, again, that's another comparison that just doesn't match each other. Now, you have to understand, Frundi is not the leader of La République du Cameroon. He is just one of their elite. And when he came visiting to the U.S. and wanted to meet with the interim government sent me to go meet with him. I went, met with him, and reported back to the interim government. It had nothing to do with I mean, he has no power. He had no powers to mediate between us and the interim government. In fact, he reasons quite the opposite way from us. Frundi thought he would take a 10-state federation and then build an army and then take over. If you listen to me when I mentioned this, some people went and cut it to imply that Secretary Chris is saying that, oh, we should take federation. No, I was actually quoting Frundi. He said to me, when the interim government sent me to him, we are doing this wrong, he said. According to him, we should take federation first, and then when we take federation according to Frundi, we should then begin to build an army and cut off from there. And I said, sir, that will never happen, and it is very true. It will never happen. We have gone past that time of federation. Federation is not in our agenda. But let me add this. Knowing what we knew then, knowing what we knew, what we were privy to, and sending anybody, even a clerk, to go sit there and represent us would have legitimized, would have left our footprint in that meeting. Let me tell you something. Some people said we should go. Because we had a good debate over it. Some people said we should go, and if we don't like it, we should walk out. You go there and then you walk out. You are still there. You left your footprints there. The best way to do is have a good team. Reason out with them. Consult others. Hear what they say. People without the circle. Hear what they say and go with it. And I think I am glad we took the right decision. Listen, comrade, if tomorrow, I understand they still have another meeting on November 20th in Canada. If tomorrow La République listens to us and say, okay, now we are putting everything on the table. Let's meet there. Everything can be discussed. I bet you we will be there. It's never too late. Thank you.
Okay. as I said before we go, we should say something about unity again, because it is very crucial at this moment that we should work together to finish this business of ours and get to Boya. So you are one of the first. In fact, you are the first leader in this revolution that has ever told others that I am sorry, that none of the things I did in the past was intentionally meant to hurt anyone. It was a step in the right direction. It was mature and it was timely. And I believe that it should be healing. Are you taking it in that step to continue working? And should we believe that in the next few months we can be talking about you having a joint call like this with some comrades, say Comrade Akoro, say Comrade Akwanga, say Comrade Yerma? In fact, can you take a first step? Is it possible to unite or collaborate with the first IG that is the line of Siseko? Or what type of collaboration do you think will work for us to make people have confidence and come back into the revolution?
There are two things here. We can either unite, after all, it is the IG. We can unite and work together as a team. But if we cannot unite, we can collaborate. Collaborate in the sense that if I am meeting a diplomat in New York, maybe I should call the other guys and let them know we are talking to this diplomat, so that the other team is not booking appointment, going there to talk to the same diplomat, and then it happens that we are having 2 or 3 or 4 people coming from interim government to talk to the same diplomat. We can coordinate our forces by jointly raising funds on the ground. Mm-hmm. We can coordinate our strategy, our roadmap, so that we all know what our next steps are going to be. We coordinate fundraising. But one thing that many people forget in this struggle is our refugees. You will agree with me, nobody of all these dozens of factions that we see, nobody cares about the refugees on ground one and in other places. Nobody but this interim government for the past 6 years. So that's another area of collaboration. People should not just be hungry for power, they should be hungry to serve. That is an area of collaboration. Many of them, and I believe, as you said, I believe within a month or so, we should have made some strides and maybe do some joint press conference on this channel to speak as a team. And I think Ambazonians will be excited to see that happen.
Thank you very much. And let me give you an opportunity. Maybe you have many more things to tell your followers out there that I didn't ask you. And since we're running out of time, let me give you this time.
Well, thank you, Comrade. It was a great privilege to be the first on your show. And I see you did really, really good. I am very comfortable with the questions that you ask, and you can ask them anytime, again and again and again. I am never scared with questions because I listen to Judge Judy a lot. Judge Judy, those of you, sometimes we'll have it on the ABS for Ground Zero. And Judge Judy says, if you know the truth, you don't have to think. You know the truth, you don't have to think. So that's why I'm not scared of any questions, ready to take them anytime. But let me say this and go back to the Canadian meeting, fellow Ambazonians. The Canadian meeting is not over. They have the second meeting coming up November 20th, as I have learned. If conditions change, we will be there. But if the conditions do not change, we are not going to show up there. The priority on my table right now is La République du Cameroon. La République has no reason to negotiate now, to be serious now. Nothing is hurting them. Nothing is paining them. There is no havoc done against them. This is the moment to do so. We want the moment where their partners will begin to say, we cannot give you any more money because we realize there is insecurity in your country. Where diplomats in La République will begin to say, we can't stay here anymore. They begin to write reports, we can't stay here anymore because there is no security here. We want a situation where they have no oil. They have no oil in La République. We want a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where their own citizens are taking to the streets and demonstrating and saying, you must stop this genocide war. We want a situation where their ministers, their governors will feel the pain in our territory and actually begin to move out. That is the only situation that when you hear La République du Cameroon calls for negotiations or mediations, you know they are serious. And it is only at that moment they will come to the table without preconditions. That is what we are looking for. That is what the international community asks for. Negotiations without preconditions. That means an open agenda. If there will be any preconditions, the two parties should have the opportunity to discuss it. That is what is called backroom talks, comrade. Not when you call a conference, a meeting in Canada. That is not a backroom talk. So, we are saying, if the conditions change and Sikod and the rest are released from prison, we will be there. And please do not say that is a precondition. It is not a precondition. Sikod is one of those who should be one of the parties sitting on that table. You cannot say you are discussing peace and justice and you have some of the leaders locked up behind bars. You are talking peace outside. We will not be party to it. We will never be party to it. So please, nobody out there should be worried about the Canadian talks or Canadian meeting. We will have to move the hand of La République du Cameroon to settle for genuine negotiations, and the way to go by is visit them in their territory in a very vicious manner. And we are in the process of doing that. And when that happens, you will know. You will know. For the ground zero fighters, let me say this to you. We are working with you county by county, LGA by LGA. We do not want warlords in the diaspora telling you the diaspora is divided, but they are the ones setting the confusion on the ground. The comrade here mentioned about APS, he said Ambazonia Liberation something. Ambazonia Liberation something came from AMF, Ambazonia Military Force, or something like that. They are just changing names and trying to do the same thing in another way. We do not stand for that. I will say it again. We do not support that. We support county structures, counties, ARF, so that we have some level of command upon who we give money and arms to fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this time. Before I put my conclusive statements, let me say that I would be very happy if you find time to meet with other organizations, other institutions, other frontline movements, and especially defense representatives, and plan out for the eventualities of things around us, both from the other side in Nigeria and on the La République side. It is very, very crucial, and I do not want to go more than that. It's very important, and we may talk behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Ambazonians, it was a very great time with you people. It is a singular pleasure. It is my singular pleasure to be here with Comrade Chris Anu. He has fought a good fight, and I appreciate the time he has given me and giving me an opportunity on this show. And I want to call upon every Ambazonian, wherever you are, whoever you are, to say that there is a time for everything, a time to start and a time to end, a time to fight, a time to make peace, a time where we disagree, and a time when we come together to build. Yes, we must work together, and we must work cautiously, because the enemy continues to look for ways to destroy us. The enemy is making all type of channels in order to derail us and make us fight ourselves. And that is why some of those things that do not look good should be minimized, so that we do not have time to fight ourselves like we did during the Swiss talk, that continue to widen the gap that exists between us. We should narrow and begin to work together. And it is only being focused that we can make it. We know we must work with caution. And we know that we must also caution every of our brothers, our frontline movements, and knowing that some of the frontline movements are losing steam, some are losing their way, others are still believing so much in surrogacy that cause us to fight and to kill ourselves rather than killing the enemy. And that is why we believe that, as we have had this show, and we believe that we are carrying out a continuation from where Chris Anu, our senior brother and senior comrade, made it known that he wants to foster unity and collaboration. At least let us help him achieve this, because that is a precondition, and that is the way Tibor Nagy, for respect of Tibor Nagy, who had sacrificed all to work with us, who had sacrificed all to advise us and make us achieve independence or some level of autonomy, as he says it. If he believes in us and is not wavering, please let us rise up, build a very good chain of command on ground zero, build our counties, build other self-defense groups, support them, and arm the boys on ground zero. You have heard of Mr. Chris Anu. We want to take him for his word that he will fight for collaboration, that we will jointly raise funds to sponsor the fighters on the ground, that we will jointly walk a roadmap for this revolution, including what we need for the challenges that are in the near future. We will jointly sponsor refugees, and that he recommends that we have to do that. This, and he promised to be on the negotiation table if conditions change. And that is what we need, and that is what I urge you. I call all other leaders that have not trusted him and say that you can never say, I don't trust somebody, without giving him a chance. He has come up. Let us try and see what he has to offer and hold him accountable. We believe that he has something to offer, and only by giving him an opportunity, we would not be able to have it. And knowing that, we would continue to ask him, we will continue to hold him accountable, that he had been one of the problems that we had fought ourselves, but that the good of the revolution needs us. We need his energy. We need his voice. He should use it for good. He should use it for the betterment of this revolution, and we would be gone, and we would be free within the shortest time possible. Ambazonians, come on the table. Come around and walk like people of one parent, and the revolution will be ours, or the freedom will be ours. I have one thing to leave you with. The independence of Southern Cameroon is irreversible and irrevocable. God has given us. God bless you. Good night.